welcome everyone back to the hot seat. I am your host Brock Vieira, and I am back from hiatus. Um, if you guys were wondering where I was, it's kind of what this episode is about. I want to use this episode as an intro to get back into the show. I want to talk to everyone about what my goals are for the future, what my goals are here with Team MBS Media, and what the collective goal of this show will be as we head into football season. And I just want to touch base with everybody that's given me so much love and support over the years. Um, it's been an interesting journey at diving into this crazy world of sports that I love so much, and having the ability to work with such amazing people and such knowledgeable minds has been one of the true privileges of my young life. um, Getting a chance to sit down in front of a computer screen and talk ball with you know all these great people about the things that so many people love, which is football in a variety of ways. There's such a huge following for college football, NFL, and the diehards that really support the XFL, USFL, and the CFL. And I want to use this space to kind of have something for everyone. And what I mean by that is we're going to be covering the NFL like everyone else does. I'm going to cover college football like everybody else does, but I also want to include much more coverage on the XFL, the USFL, and especially the CFL, which we're in season right now. We have a lot of fans up in Canada, and we want to make sure that football up there is getting the proper recognition it deserves because it has such a rich history, and we in the States don't talk about it enough. Um, I also want to talk about another variety of sports. We want to cover soccer, European MLS. We even get dive into the Saudi league that is spending a lot of cash right now. We're even going to touch to the Asian markets and try to bring up the A League down in Australia and the J League in Japan as much as possible, if not the Chinese Super League as well. When it comes to hockey, we want to make sure that we have coverage beyond the NHL. We want to make sure that we cover, the nations that where it's a top priority, places like Russia and Finland, um, places like Sweden, and obviously we're going to make sure we emphasize Canadian and American hockey players as well. We want to get into a little bit MMA, a little bit boxing, talk about a little bit lifestyle. Maybe not too much on lifestyle. I really want to keep it a sports, but of course, sports and life are they go together. So we want to make sure we keep it fresh and keep it relevant. And like I said, we just want to have a little bit of something for everybody. I'm going to bring on some really knowledgeable guests in a variety of roles. Uh, our next guest later is going to be Omar Borja from his podcast, and he is a member of the United States military, but he's also uh, covers Army football. He's one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to Army football. So we want to make sure we cover that, especially with Army heading into what could be a really, really good season for them. Just depends on exactly how the schedule is going to shape out and the players they have on the field. Kind of like with everything, we already covered Michigan on here, but we're going to continue with our Big Ten coverage. We want to make sure we cover the Mountain West. We're going to start covering FCS football as well. There's some really, really great programs around the country in the FCS. Places like Wood, Incarnate Ward, I mean, wow, English, right? Eastern Washington, Portland State, Montana, Idaho, Montana State, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, so on and so forth. And we really want to make sure that these programs, again, are getting the attention that they deserve. We're going to be also covering HBCU football. I know, obviously, these past couple of years, historically, black colleges and universities, their football programs have been getting a tremendous amount of attention because of guys like Deion Sanders who went down there and coached, but obviously not Sanders up in Colorado. So that we're going to talk about later on in the show, but we want to make sure that the coverage of HBCU football is just a flash in the pan kind of thing. We want to make sure that we, keep applying the pressure and continue to talk about, you know, um, a era of football that really helped define pro ball, you know, all over. There's so many great players that played in the NFL that have come out from HBCUs, and even though a lot of the top players come out of high school now go to bigger colleges, there still is tremendous talent at those universities and at those programs. So I'll make sure that we give that the proper attention it deserves, especially when you work for a company like Team MBS Media, who has had several members attend historically black colleges and universities, including my college football forecast co-host Bill Carroll, who will talk about his days up in Virginia with great love and great memories for him. And that's another thing that I'm on another show called College Football Forecast. I want you guys to check it out. Episodes should be dropping every Saturday. We've done we're in our second season now. We've done a bunch of preview shows. We've done the ACC, we've done the Big Ten, and then we will now be going forward with our coverage of the SEC, Big 12, Pac 12, Mountain West. We should be coming up on the American Conference episode. We should be filming soon, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you want to stay tuned for emphasis on college football, go visit us on there. Our show is available here at Team MBS Media on our YouTube page. And so Team MBS Media, and one of the reasons why I love working with them and working for the big boss Joe Cardozo is that they really allow me to be free and have just the freedom to really express not only how I feel, but what I really want to say in a variety of ways. And one of those ways is the show. So the goal for us is to bring honest sports takes and excellent sports coverage. Now, you may not necessarily agree with us. Probably when it comes to media, disagree with me most of the time. But we want to make sure that the voice that I have is my own voice. I'm not getting backed by nothing. I'm not being pushed to speak in a certain way. Everything that I say is how I really feel, and that honesty and that transparency is something that's really important to me. Something that I want to put forward to you guys. You know, when you see a bunch of other shows, I'm not trying to call out anybody or judge anybody, but I feel like sometimes people say things just for clicks, or they say things because there's a financial incentive to it. And for us, we're all about speaking our truth, and no matter what, I was going to speak my truth, and this show will be a catalyst for that. For this remaining portion of the show, we're going to talk about the NFL division winners, my predictions for them and why. We're going to talk about the Power 5 conferences in college football, my expected division winners over there. We're going to talk about the recent announcement about the Colorado Buffaloes moving to the Big 12. I should say back to the Big 12. We're going to talk about what could the scenario look like if the Pac-12 dissolves, and they're losing some of the teams left and right. Obviously, Colorado is leaving. USC and UCLA are going to the Big Ten. There's a bunch of programs kind of up in the air right now, so we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to finish about how I feel about Saquon Barkley, his new contract, and what that means for the rest of the league, especially the running back market in general, which has taken a hit over these past 5 to 6 years. One of the things about Team MBS Media that I really love is, like I mentioned, it allows me to meet so many talented and knowledgeable people, but those people are also very creative. And one of those people is Mark Wilson. Now, Mark has been a guest on the show many times, and he is a diehard Philadelphia fan. Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, Phillies, you name it, he is on it. Now, Mark's Twitter handle is at BXReporter, and one of the things that he does in his free time is that he owns a clothing company called Rich Kid Clothing. Now, I had the opportunity to purchase 2 items from him. He really hooked it up. He's a great guy, and he actually included a couple more things for me. One of those things was this shirt right here. So, Rich Kid Clothing, definitely give him and his company a look. He has phenomenal clothing. He is very professional. Gets you your orders on time, and he makes sure that he takes care of his people. And as long as you make sure that show him support, he'll definitely show you back. And we're all about supporting small businesses. We really love the products that he produces. The clothing feels fantastic. I really love the jacket that I got. I know that he's going to start diving more into his hat variety soon as well. Excuse me. So please make sure you stay on top of that. Great guy, great company. You really can't go wrong. And again, it's so many brands out there, but you really want to diversify your outfits and your look portfolio. So I think this would be a great place to start. Rich Kid Clothing. You find them on social media outlets, Twitter, Instagram. We will have the commercial soon, so you can see even more of their work. They were featured in, I think, 2021 New York Fashion Week. Amongst other things. So, it's not like they're the stage of just some dude starting in his basement. They're for real. They legit. They got a bunch of inventory that they're ready to sell, and just show them some support. When we come back, we're going to be diving into everything I talked about earlier, NFL predictions, college football predictions, and then how the shape up of Colorado going to the Big 12 is going to affect the rest of the Pac-12. We'll be right back.
This commercial is brought to you by TrueBrain. Say hello to TrueBrain. We're not magicians. We're not going to turn you into a rocket scientist. Unless you're already a rocket scientist. We're not big pharma, and our products are custom made to boost mental output. We empower people to do their best thinking.
So this week marks a great time for all football fans, and all 32 teams are reporting for training camp. So this kind of marks the beginning of what hopefully will be another great NFL season here in 2023. Now we still have a long way to go, and there's a bunch of great and talented free agents that are still left on the market. We're just kind of waiting to see where they're going to fall. So things could shift, but here are my current predictions for the division winners in both the AFC and the NFC for the 2023 season. In the AFC for the AFC West, I got to go with the Super Bowl champs, Kansas City Chiefs. They have the best quarterback in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes, the best offensive mind in the NFL, and Andy Reid, the most versatile weapon in the NFL, and Travis Kelsey, and just supplemented with a tremendous amount of excellent players, including one of the most underrated offensive lines in the NFL. I think they have a top five offensive line. Yes, they did lose Orlando Brown Jr., so we got to see how that's going to play out, but they still have Creed Humphrey, they still have Joe Tooney, and then they have Smith um, as well. So it's they're fine. Defensively, when they brought in Justin Reed and let Tyrann Matthew go, that's really underrated move by the Chiefs, but it's shown dividend. I mean, he is an absolute animal at the safety position. They still have Chris Jones on the squad, so they still have a very solid defense. Nick Bolton, they did pick up Drew Tranquil, who might even be a fourth string linebacker. And if you kind of send him anywhere else in the league, he probably would be a starter. That just kind of shows the tremendous depth that they have. They have one of the best special team units. It's really cut it and dry. I think they won the last 8 division titles. Basically, remember the year the Broncos won the Super Bowl? Yeah, everything after that it has belonged to Kansas City. I don't see it changing. So Kansas City Chiefs. In the AFC East, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. I know there's a tremendous amount of hype on the Jets because of Aaron Rodgers, and he just took a pay cut. And they have Garrett Wilson, and they're bringing in Alan Lazard, and they still have Vera Tucker on the offensive line, and defensively, they're one of the best teams in the league with Sauce Gardner, and then they also have very young defensive line, some really nice linebackers, some other really great DBs. But and of course Salah as their head coach, who is a defensive minded guy. But until I see the Jets having sustained success on the football field, I gotta hold off on that a little bit. We don't really know how good Rodgers is gonna be. We expect him to be good, but he's still injured at one wrong hit in a conference that has a lot of phenomenal pass rushers, and that could change the trajectory of their season. So that's why I'm not really sold on the Jets. A lot of people love the Dolphins. Kind of the same situation is that we don't really know where Tua is at, health wise. He had some really, really bad injuries last year, a couple scares with concussions, and he's virtually, I mean, everyone is one hit away from never playing again, but he is literally one hit away from never playing again. Yeah, they have speed all over the field, but I have some questions about that offensive line as well. And then, Tua hasn't really shown the arm strength that I really would like to see. Now, I'm not a real big guy on arm strength, but you can't lob every pass either. And I think that with the DBs, again, in the conference, I think he's going to have some problems winning football games, especially later on in the year when it gets a little bit colder and he has to go on the road to win. New England, I mean, Tom Brady ain't there. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Buffalo, you still got Josh Allen. You got Stephon Diggs. You added a really big weapon in Dalton Kincaid. I do have some questions about that run game, but the offensive line is still solid. Defensively, you're going to be great. Everyone wants to talk about DeMar Hamlin, and rightfully so, considering how it came back. But DeMar Hamlin was a second stringer because Jordan Poyer was hurt for a majority of last season, and Micah Hyde missed the whole season. So having all three of those gentlemen back is going to be a major boost to that secondary. You have really good corners with Kyrie Elam and then Tre'Davious White, and Von Miller also got hurt at the end of last season. They were really missing him. If he comes back, he has a good productive season, double-digit sacks. There's no reason Buffalo doesn't win this division. In the North, I understand Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the hot team right now, and I understand they've won the past 2 years, the division for the past 2 years, and before that is the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm going with the team that won it in 2020, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I know a lot of you are looking at me crazy considering the amount of success the Bengals have had for the last 2 years, but we've seen it in the NFL. Success is hard to sustain, especially when you don't win a Super Bowl. They obviously came up close to going back to the Super Bowl last season. They lost a close one to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. I do have some. I still have some questions about that offensive line. I have some questions about that defense. I think the defensive line is solid. I got some questions about the DBs and how good they can be. But how long are they going to play at this level? And let's not forget, Pittsburgh did beat them. It was week one, but they did beat them last year when they really shouldn't have. I mean, Mika Fitzpatrick had to play Superman to block the extra point. Obviously, they wanted overtime. But I do have some valid concerns about the Bengals. With the Ravens, you got to bring in a new OC and Todd Munkin, who I do have confidence in. I do think he's going to spread out the field, giving Lamar Jackson much more ability to kill defenses with with the passing and rushing offense. I think Lamar Jackson, we're really going to get to see what he can do as a passer. I got some questions about that defense, though. They lost a lot of guys on that defense. Some of the young guys haven't improved in the ways that I initially expected after the rookie seasons, and they've had a variety of injuries that have hurt them over the past 2 years. And I just don't feel sold on the Baltimore Ravens yet. Cleveland probably should be the favorite, but again, they're Cleveland, and they haven't really shown the ability to win a division. I mean, I get they won a playoff game with Kevin Stefanski, but that was what 3 years ago. They're bringing Deshaun Watson. This is his first full kind of year back in football, practicing, playing regularly, but I got some questions on that. Outside of Mark Cooper, I don't really see another guy being kind of that threat unless someone can kind of point that out to me. And even at times, Cooper can disappear. It's kind of hard for me to really feel confident about this Browns team, even though defensively they look like they're the best defense team in the NFL. It feels like. I mean, when you have a player like Miles Garrett coming at opposing his quarterback, you just got to feel confident about you know a guy like that, right? I mean, he's being paid as pass rusher, and they had a phenomenal draft. I just want to kind of go over some of the players that they were able to select, even though they didn't pick 74th because they traded away so many picks for Deshaun Watson and for a variety of other players, including Elijah Moore. Um, so they got Cedric Tillman, who's a phenomenal wide receiver out of Tennessee. Siaki Ika, who's a very underrated defensive tackle, especially since they had to release Perrion Winfrey because of his off the field antics. Dewan Jones, right tackle, who should not have fought, probably will be a excellent backup to Jack Conklin. Luke Whiteplayer, how he fell to the sixth, I will never know. So they really were able to supplement the teams, and quite frankly, it's kind of looking like how the beginning of the Philadelphia Eagles looked when they were building up their roster. They really got some great young depth pieces on the offensive line, and then they just let the team take off. You still got Nick Chubb in that backfield, but I mean, Donovan Peoples Jones, is that really the guy you want to rely on? Is David Bell going to take that step up this year, even though I do like him? I got some really big question marks with that wide receiver room. And for Pittsburgh, the reason why I'm so on board with the Steelers is I think Kenny Pickett is a game manager. But I think the Steelers can win with a game manager. Their defense is the best defense in the NFL. They bring in a guy in Pat P, who was kind of on the decline for a while, especially during his 2 years at Minnesota. I think being a place like Pittsburgh is really going to revitalize him, especially with the pastures that they have. Alex Highsmith just secured his extension. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in the league. Cam Hayward continues to be a really stout interior defender. You guys are really nice linebackers over there. Again, Mika Fitzpatrick is just an absolute animal. Offensive side of the ball, you take care of your left tackle problem. Bring in Broderick Jones from Georgia. Um, you still got Deontay Johnson. You still got Najee Harris. You still got Pat Fryermuth, who's probably the most underrated tight end in the NFL. So you still got some guys that can make plays. And just something about Mike Tomlin. This feels like the year that he kind of gets things back on track. So I think that Steelers defense really, flexes their muscle and really stifles a lot of these high-powered offenses. I think that offense is good enough to grind out wins like 21-20, 17-14, 10-9. So that's why the Steelers in the South, it's very simple. It's the Jags. I mean, they were the best team in the division last year. They won a playoff game. Um, they are adding Calvin Ridley this year to a whole host of talents at Trevor Lawrence's disposal. Lawrence will take another step up. They have a really, really good defense with an underrated outside linebacker in Josh Allen, who has not gotten the love he deserves. I think he's gonna have a monster year, really show people why he's here to stay. Yeah, there's not really more I can say about that. Tennessee, we don't really know the quarterback situation. They have a very poor wide receiver room, and I think a lot of their flaws are hidden because of the coach of Mike Vrabel. I think they have the right GM in place in Caruth, but it's going to take time. Um, so I don't think that they're going to be as good as we think they are. I think they're going to be 7 or 8 wins, so they're going to be at, but they're not going to be able to win the division. Texans are still in a massive rebuild. We have yet to see what CJ Stroud can do on the field. They have a young running back in Damian Pierce who's shown explosiveness, but um, we don't know how long that's going to be able to hold up, considering that he got hit a lot last year. He got questions all over the field. Let's be honest. I do think Derek Stingley Jr. takes a massive step up this year, so just kind of keep an eye out for that. But I don't believe in them, and everyone's kind of on the Colts right now. But the Colts don't even know who's going to be their starting quarterback in Game One. You know, we don't know Anthony Richardson is really that dude. Too many questions, especially in the wide receiver room as well. Way too many questions. The offensive line was poor last year. Will Quentin Nelson live up to that big extension? I don't know. Well, I just have to see. But I just, if you look at what we saw and what they have, Jacksonville all day. Going to the NFC in the West, I have Seattle. I love the Niners, but until they can figure, even though Brock Purdy was cleared, I don't know they really know their quarterback situation yet. And until they do, we just gotta wait and see. LA, they're kind of like the same thing. We don't really know how Stafford's gonna come back, and they have a lot of money tied up with very cheap players. If Cooper Cup gets hurt again, their season's a wrap, and I can't really trust that he won't. And then lastly, Arizona Cardinals. Need I say more? The reason why I like the Seahawks so much is because they really didn't take a step back. They took a massive step forward throughout the draft and throughout free agency to acquire players like Devon Witherspoon, who has yet to sign his rookie deal, so keep that in mind. But also Jackson Smith and Jigba. You know what Geno Smith can do. I do think Geno Smith will regress a little bit, but look at what you added around him. He can rely on his run game more because he has both Kenneth Murray and Zach Charbonnet at his disposal. I think they're the next 1-2 combo, running combo in the NFL. Keep in mind that that's what Pete Carroll's kind of been known for a majority of his career, especially when he was at USC when he had Reggie Bush and Lindell White. So I think that's going to really fit him well. And then look at his wide receivers. You have Smith and Jigba, who has potentially be one of the best slot receivers in the league. You have arguably the best slot receiver in the league already in Tyler Lockett, and what a big threat in DK Metcalf. Defensively, Tariq Woolen is really showing himself to be one of the top corners in this league, especially at such a young age, especially for being a fourth round pick. Shout out UTSA. Um, could Jamal Adams come back healthy? If he does, that's an added boost to them. Maybe if they move him more, maybe they might convert him to linebacker and you know put in a safety, or maybe and you also have Quandre Diggs in there as well as one of the more veteran presences in the field. He can kind of see everything and really help these young corners kind of point out and give them an advantage against these passing offenses in the NFL. They've added some other really nice pieces along the both offensive and defensive line. I just love the tackles and Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. I love Abraham Lucas. How he fell is kind of beyond me, but both guys are really great. Both guys are excellent pass blockers because they played at schools that only pass the football. So I think Geno's gonna have a tremendous amount of time. I think they're gonna get the job done. In the East, I don't. Everyone's picking the Eagles, but they haven't had a back-to-back division champ since I think the early '90s, late '80s, or I think maybe it was the mid '90s with the Cowboys. But I'm going with the Cowboys, and that's kind of the reason why is because they haven't had a back-to-back champ in a long time. Even though Philadelphia does have a really, really good chance to do it. Philadelphia did lose Miles Sanders. Philadelphia did lose the Super Bowl, so there's always that Super Bowl lull that can hang over teams at times. And the Cowboys just seem ready to take the next step. Um, I don't like the Giants too much because they still haven't figured out the whole Saquon situation. And I don't think Daniel Jones is that good. I just think he looked a lot better because of how bad he looked for the first 3 years of his career. I think Dable's offense does get a little bit better, but at the same time, you have a defense coordinator in Doc Martindale that I said not Doc, but Wake Martindale that he get a little bit over aggressive at times, and he'll zero blitz the daylights out of you. I think he can be exposed. And Washington, let's just not even go there. So I picked Dallas in the North. I like Green Bay. I think Minnesota is more building towards the future than for the now. Though I do like the addition of Jordan Addison to that wide receiver room. I think he's going to help free up things with Justin Jefferson. T.J. Hawkinson is going to do that as well. I think the offense is going to be fine, even though they did lose Dalvin Cook. So that's a big, big loss for them, especially for a team that won a division with a minus point differential. Defensively, I got some major questions though. I don't think they've adequately addressed the cornerback room. I don't think that you know from the defense last time point they clearly got worse. And what else is there really to say about it? When especially when you lose a guy like Darius Smith, like that's a big thing to replace. And even the Packers have struggled doing that for a while. So I think the Vikings defense take a step back, and I just think they got a little bit too lucky in 2022 for me to feel comfortable with them in 2023. Bears are still rebuilding; they're far away, and then Detroit. I know everyone's on them, but it's the Lions. They lost Jamal Williams, who broke Barry Sanders' record for rushing touchdowns. I think defense they get a lot tighter on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the defense is good. I don't think they're that good. I think Aiden Hutchinson had a little bit better year than we expected him to. I think he comes back to earth a little bit. And for the Packers, I think you have a guy in Jordan Love who's been in that system for now 4 years. He understands it. He looked really good when he played last season. I think yes, he step ups from Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs. I think Romeo Dobbs is going to turn to one of the better deep threats in the NFL. You're going to have Bakhtiari and Jenkins hopefully healthy for the first time in a long time. You have a solid running back room. You have a really, really good defense. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes. You have just pl- players that make plays all over the field. You had two young guys I think take steps up in Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, especially Wyatt as well. I think he really establishes his presence inside. I think Kenny Clark's ability to take on double teams is really going to make Wyatt a dangerous, dangerous player this year. That's why the Green Bay Packers. To finish it off in the South, I have the Carolina Panthers. I think they have the best roster, the best coaching. They might not be the best team in the NFL. Actually, they're far from it. But the rest of the teams are looking even worse. I like the Saints as a roster. I hate the Saints as a coaching staff. I don't think Pete Carmichael can really call a full game plan for 17 games. I think Dennis Allen can really coach a team for 17 games. Kind of the same thing with Todd Bowles. I think he's better as a DC than a head coach. I think the scars are starting to show. Even though Tom Bay also had a really good offseason and they have a really decent roster. And then you also got Atlanta, who really hasn't established a quarterback situation yet. Are they going to go with Desmond Ritter? Are they going to go with Taylor Heineke? We don't really know yet. So I like the team that has a young quarterback that really supplemented their roster with a lot of great talents. I really love their tackles and Taylor Martin and Ikom Kwanu. I think they have a really good interior offensive line, so they'll be good there. And then defensively, Brian Burns, really good underrated pass rusher. Jeremy Chin, really good underrated safety. Um, yeah, you just got again players all over the field. Shaq Thompson at linebacker, and I think that remember they were only one game away from winning the division last year after trading away Chris McCaffrey after releasing Robbie Anderson. Having Sam Darnold as a quarterback. So I'm really really high on the Panthers this year. I think Frank Reich, Bryce Young, and the team get it done. Moving on to college football. Real quick, just SC Alabama. Even though we don't really know the quarterback situation, yet, I think Nick Saban's coming for blood. I think Dallas Turner takes a step up this year, and they got some really, really young recruits that are just going to light people up on that defense side of the football. I think they get back to basics, run the football with Tommy Reese. I think they grind out a lot more wins than just straight up passing through there and blowing them out. I think they're going to be better for it, and that's why I think they're going to be the SEC champion. Big Ten, I'm going to go with the Michigan Wolverines until I see solid quarterback play from Ohio State. I really don't trust them. Ohio State also has to travel to Michigan. Michigan returns starter J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, and a whole host of other players. 3 out of the 5 members of that award-winning Michigan offensive line return as well. So I think they're just going to run the football down people's throats. I got some questions on them defensively, but I think they'll be all right. We'll just see what happens if they get back to the college football playoff. The ACC have Clemson. Everyone's on Florida State right now, and for a good reason. Jordan Travis could be a potential top 60 quarterback selection or top 60 pick for a quarterback. They have some decent players on offense. Jared Verse and that defense is kind of like making people gotta Google. But the worst part about that team is the DB room. And when DB room is bad at Florida State, I think that's a massive issue. And that's why I like Clemson. I like the established program. I like the established coaching staff. And let's see what we got with Klubnik. They also have a really good running back as well. I think his name is Will Shipley. Dude is a stud. So that's why I think Clemson wins it. Pac-12 got USC, returning Heisman winner, one of the best offensive minds of football. I think the defense is going to take a massive step up this year. I think this is Alex Grinch's prove it year. This is the best defense he's probably had in arguably ever in his career as a full-time defensive coordinator. At least, well, was he? I think It's been at least since Oklahoma. So sorry, OU fans, but I think if he can't get it done here is a major issue. I think he does get it done. I think Brendan Rice is gonna have a phenomenal year. I think Austin Jones is gonna have a phenomenal year, running back. Apologize if I didn't get his last name correct. Um, yeah, no, this team is Mario Williams, wide receiver, is gonna have a great year. Dorian Singer, transfer from Arizona, is gonna have a great year. They did lose Andrew Voorhees on the offensive line, but I think they'll be all right. So I like USC. Big 12, that was a tough one. Everyone is either Texas or OU. Texas, I don't think Steve Sarkisian can win the clutch. OU, until I see the recruits actually make plays on the field, especially offensively, I have some major questions. I feel like they ran Eric Green to the ground and really misused his talent. I'm going to go with a controversial pick, and that is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. I really love Joey McGuire as a coach. To bring it back, Tyler Show as quarterback. They have a really solid passing offense, so good playmakers at wide receiver. It's really starting to show McGuire's ability to recruit, especially at the high school level in Texas, considering he was a former longtime high school coach. And yeah, it's more just a lot of the division's bad. They don't have to play original big 12 opponents they're supposed to in Iowa State, Oklahoma State, because they're going to be playing the new guys, BYU, Houston, and UCF instead. They have a very easy schedule. I think that if they get into the conference championship game, I think they'll pull off the win. So that's my Power 5 winners. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado going back to the Big 12, how that affects the Pac 12, and then my final thoughts on Saquon Barkley's new extension with the New York Giants. So recently, it's been recently announced that Colorado has reached an agreement with the Big 12 to rejoin the conference. They have yet to inform the Pac-12 that they're leaving, but it's pretty much kind of confirmed that they're going. To me, this shows two things. One, clearly the Pac-12 is dying if Colorado is leaving, and secondly, I think that Deion Sanders is truly committed to this project in Boulder. If you think about it, this is going to be the alma mater of his children, both Shiloh and Shadur. This place gave him an opportunity when virtually no one else besides the University of South Florida would. This place gave him, the free reign to go out and bring in all these top players. And I think that he's comfortable in this situation. He's still going to be at a Power 5 school. He can build it from the inside out. But let's not forget that even though it was the 90s, Colorado has won a national championship before, so they've shown that they can get it done in a variety of ways. When you look at that kind of area of the country, there isn't really like a big powerhouse that stands out that can be a major threat to them at the moment, besides maybe Oklahoma. But Oklahoma's headed to the SEC, so that's not really a concern at the moment. I just think that I think it's a right move for Colorado. I don't think the time the Pac-12 besides a 1 year has been really worth it. And you go into a conference is going to hopefully establish himself a really good TV deal that can really bring in some funds. Um, if this happens, I think the Pac-12, like if this trend of teams leaving, the Pac-12 is going to dissolve. I think this is how it probably is going to shape out. Washington and Oregon are the last two big brands left in the conference after um, USC and UCLA leave. I think they will also eventually join the Big Ten as well. It just makes the most sense for them. Maybe throw in Utah as well because they're in like this weird part of the country, but they've also played in prime time for the past umpteen years, and they're just a known brand. So I think they go to the Big Ten. I think the Big 12 continues with the expansion west, but also southwest. I think they go and get Arizona State. I just think from a geographical standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for them, especially the flying back and forth. And I don't really think it makes sense for them to go after any other program from both a financial standpoint or competitive standpoint. I think the Mountain West and the Pac-12 at this point would eventually merge. Obviously, Mountain West bringing all its members. I think teams like Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, the kind of guys that got left out, left behind, will join the Mountain West. You could also see the Pac-12 look to explore by plucking some teams in the Mountain West. There were some discussions earlier that San Diego State will also go to the Pac-12. Fresno State has been kind of eyeing that for a while, especially since that those teams play, even the majority of Mountain West teams do, those teams in particular play Pac-12 opponents in their non-conference schedule a lot. So I think you could see that. Or And if that's the case, I think you can see the Mountain West go after a lot of FCS programs. Eastern Washington is a very exciting passing offense. Portland State did too. I mean, Troy Taylor was the head coach at Portland State before he got the job at Stanford. I think Montana has a very rich history, and Idaho as well. I think you kind of want to keep the Palouse together as much as possible. Maybe that's just the diehard college football fan in me, but that's something that I would like to see. Kind of finish out this episode, I want to talk quickly about Saquon Barkley. He signed a 1 year, $11 million contract with the New York Giants, kind of avoiding the fallout of the whole franchise tag thing. I feel like Barkley sold out. You know what? A guy like Josh Jacobs is catching a plane to fly out of Vegas. You sign and report the first day of training camp. And I think it's a bad look for him. If it's a bad look for running backs, I think he was only concerned about himself. And hey, I get it because at the end of the day, if you get hurt or you get messed up, no one else is gonna look after you except for you. So I understand why you're doing it. But when you have so many running backs like Austin Eckler, who's on a contract year, Derrick Henry, who's gonna have a contract coming up, and he's older, Christian McCaffrey, who people have kind of pointed to in a variety of ways of why you don't give big money to, even though he's been able to come back and redeem himself in San Francisco. You're the second overall pick. You help the Giants get out of a really bad slump, and then you take a kind of a backhanded contract. I think it just shows that running backs can be bought for cheap, and you just ruin the entire, you know, push by running backs to try and be paid fairly and properly. You have a lot of guys that are really good at comeback contract years, like I mentioned, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb is another one, and especially when you look at the value of running backs, if these guys aren't getting selected in the first rounds, with Bijan Robinson being the ninth overall pick, but Bijan Robinson is one of the highest paid running backs, and he's a rookie. That just kind of shows where the money is at. But what I'm saying is, if you're not a Bijan Robinson guy and you play running back, or you're not a Jamar Gibbs guy and you play running back, you're probably going to be selected in the high second round, which means you're only going to have a 4 year deal like a guy like Nick Chubb to kind of prove it. And if you do, they can franchise you, tag you twice, and you're never gonna get first round money. And the franchise tag money is not that good, so you have to play at least 6 years before you can get a decent deal. And by that time, if you enter the league when you're 23, you're 29, people are thinking you're about to fall out. You can't win. And this was supposed to be an opportunity for Saquon to kind of be the catalyst for this running back movement, and to me, he sold out. And I don't think that when you look back at the history, especially when it comes to like the 2011 NFL lockout, I think it was 2011, because they Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, some of the highest earners in the league, they stayed in solidarity with the Players Association. I think this is your opportunity to kind of be the face of the players movement, and you let everybody down. And that's just how I feel about it. Appreciate you guys watching this episode. I'm glad you guys kind of know where I'm at. Glad that you guys are going to see what we're going to bring, and I cannot wait to keep pushing forward this show with this brand. And it really is a pleasure to be able to do this. I'm going to head out. Again, I'm burning the midnight oil. I'm going to go make myself some dinner, and I'll catch you guys next time. See you guys soon.